So what is the best DAW out there? This is something that a lot of people ask on a regular basis, and they want to know what DAW should they use to have the best quality. So we're going to do a test on Pro Tools, on Logic, and on Studio One, and I'm going to export all the files, bring them all into a single DAW, and do a null test where we flip the phase. If the quality is exactly the same, then it should be silent. If it's different in any way, it won't be silent, and you'll be able to hear the difference. Inside of Pro Tools here, I have two plugins on. I have the EQ here. I saved this setting and then just copied and pasted into each DAW, so that way it's exactly the same. There's no difference on it. I also am automating it, so you can see right here, the filter is engaged just in this section, and then it's not engaged on the rest of the song. And then I have one other plugin, which is the limiter. All I'm doing is the output is minus 0.3, and it's dithering down to 16-bit because all of my sessions are in 24-bit. So we're going to be able to hear the dither from the plugin. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm not using any dither from the DAWs themselves. Like Pro Tools, there is no dither on that, so you do it in a plugin. Logic, you have the option to add dither during bounce down, and Studio One, it's by default on there, so you're going to have to turn it off if you're going to do this test as well. But if you are dithering with a plugin like I am here, you should have turned it off anyways. So let's go ahead and look at the other DAWs. Here's Logic, same exact setup. The EQ with the filter. The limiter is exactly the same, 16-bit minus 0.3. Now in Studio One, same exact thing. We have the EQ, same setting here, and it's also automated, this time for an even smaller section of the song so that it's different from Logic and Pro Tools. I just want it to have one part that's exactly the same. So all of the song is exactly the same except this little section right here. It's not having the filter for Studio One. For Logic, it's about to right here, and for Pro Tools, it's to about right here. So it's just little sections of difference, just so we could hear on the null test where it's not exactly the same. And then we have the limiter, exact same setting, 16-bit, minus 0.3 on the output. Okay, so in Studio One, if you haven't done so already, you would go to Preferences, go to Advanced, and right here it says Use Dithering for Playback and Audio File Export. Make sure that does not have a check mark right there because it will apply dither if it does. We don't want to do that. We're doing dither inside of our limiter. So, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and bounce down each one of these. For Studio One, I'm going to go to Song, Export Mix Down. For the resolution, it's going to be 16-bit and sample rate 44.1. That'll be the same on all of these. I'm not going to select any of these and then go ahead and press OK. All right, so let's switch over to the next DAW, which is Logic. So we're going to go to File, Bounce, Project or Section. On this one, make sure dithering is not on. Make sure normalizing is not on. You're going to do PCM, Wave, 16-bit, 44.1K. That's it. So go ahead and press OK. And let's move on to the last one, which is Pro Tools. Go to Bounce Mix. I'm going to do 16-bit, 44.1K, and I'll do it offline. All right, so now we have all three sessions bounced down into a WAV file and dragged into a Pro Tools session. Now let's do the null test. So what I'm going to do is put the trim plugin. We're going to come down to Other and then Trim. On the trim plugin, we have this phase switch right here. We're going to go ahead and engage it, and that's going to just flip the phase. And now anything that is exactly the same should cancel out and be silent. So I'm going to go ahead and solo these two. And I press play, and it's completely silent. If I flip the phase back,
still influence your acts. How come everything?
All right, completely silent. Now let's do Studio One and Logic. Completely silent as well. Flip it.
How I move out to LA and still influence.
And flip it back, completely silent. All right, so now let's press play where we did those bypassed and non-bypassed EQ filters. When the bypass is in a different section, then you'll hear the song come back in because that's where it's not the same.
And I sense it's bright, then I get reflections of the past to de-incentivize.
And then back to silence. So that's because it's different in that section because I did an automated bypass in a different part of it. That's the reason you hear it. So that's what it is. It's just a null test. Anywhere in the song that it's the same, I can press play, it'll be silent. Logic and Pro Tools, silent. So as long as you're flipping it, that's the null test. It's canceling each other out. So that just proves to you guys that there is absolutely no difference between Logic, Pro Tools, or Studio One. Not at all. It's all the same thing. They all produce the same quality of output. It doesn't matter which DAW you use. So when somebody says, oh, this DAW is better than this DAW, they're not saying it in the sense of quality. Hopefully that's not what they're saying, because it's not true. They're saying the preference of this DAW is better for me. All right, so that's it for this one. Look out for tomorrow's video on how to get your song super wide while having plenty of room for your vocals right in the middle.